Happy Saturday, music makers. Welcome to In Tune. My name's Leon Harrell. On today's show, we're going to talk a little bit about meditative practice and how you can apply that to practicing scales and improvisation. Before we get started this morning, let's just say a quick hello in the chat. If you're joining us for the first time, let me know your name, where you're located around the world, and what instrument you play. We have folks join us from all over the world. This morning I see David from Toronto. Good morning, David. Welcome back. I see Judith from London. Good morning, Judith. Welcome. And I see Henry from Boston. Welcome, Henry. Welcome back. I think I've seen you before. And Zauberhoff, welcome back. And let's see. Oh, and then Judith says a quick comment. Looking forward to this. I enjoy scales and always want to improv. Excellent. Yeah, well, that's what we're going to talk about. So this morning, before we jump into it, let's see. We're going to talk about practicing meditative practice. We're going to do that using a drone or like a playback track. So if you are interested in the track we're using today, this is for my patrons. So I'm going to throw a link up on the screen. If you're interested in that and you want to download the file or become one of our patrons to get these types of things, visit oneminutemusiclesson.com/support. And you can learn all about various ways to support the channel, but one in particular is to become a patron. And our patrons they receive various tools and tips like this for practicing. So check that out. This is available to all level of patrons. So for just a monthly subscription of $2, this is the type of content you're getting over there. So again, thank you to all our patrons for your patronage. Okay, we're going to jump into it. Let's take a look at Thanks, David. David let me know it went muted for a second. So like I was saying, what we're going to be talking about is meditative practice. That can mean a lot of different things. But in particular, we're going to talk about that, how it applies to practicing your scales. So your scales, many people struggle to practice their scales in a meaningful way or get better at that. So I see everybody's commenting about the audio. Let me know if the audio's come back, or if you're still not hearing it. It's showing me I have audio. I have audio on. Sorry about the tech difficulty. Let me take a quick listen here to my monitor. All right, testing 1, 2. So I hear audio coming through. So I think that problem's resolved, but let me know in the chat if you're still not hearing it. Okay, great. David says it's back now. Excellent. Okay, so where was I with that? So the first thing I want to talk about is just meditative practice in general. So meditative practice just means that you're practicing and you're truly in the flow state, meaning that you're focused on what you're doing. Nothing's distracting you. You're not, it's just like meditation. You're not dwelling on any particular aspect of your playing or overly worried about your development. You're just in the moment. You're practicing for the sheer enjoyment of what it is you're doing. And you're truly listening. You're doing a very deep form of listening to the sound you're making. So one way to do that is to practice with a drone track or any type of practice track. But in particular, a drone track just has the sound of what's called a drone. And I'm sure you've all heard that type of sound before. It sounds like so. Right? It's generally a perfect fifth. In many types of music, when you say the word drone, it means perfect fifth. All right. You might hear a drone when you hear music that's played on the bagpipes. The bagpipe is a drone instrument. There's an old style of instrument called the hurdy-gurdy, which is like a violin with a little crank that like plays the bow continuously. But for us this morning, we're going to be looking at it on the piano. So the drone you're going to hear is from A to E. All right. And the scale we're going to be working with is Aeolian, which is a mode, like I mentioned, of C major. So on the screen here, you see C major below me. The notes of that, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And what we're going to be doing is using a mode of that. So a mode just means that we're starting on a different note. And more than just starting on a different note, we're emphasizing a different resting place or a different tonic from C. So we're using all the same notes from C major, all the white keys of the keyboard. But our focus is going to be resting or placing a tonic emphasis on A for Aeolian. So many of you that join the show, you know, you're relatively new to music theory or you're in the process of learning music theory. So I want to point you to a website that is helpful if this kind of thing interests you and maybe in the future you want to practice your own, making your own drone tracks or things like that, or you just want to understand the theory a little bit better before we dive into it. So this particular website, you'll see the link up here on the screen. This is from musedlab.org. The particular tool is called the accordion, like the word accordion, but it's using the QWERTY keyboard, the actual typing keyboard on your computer, to play the sounds. So if you're not a pianist and you want to practice along with a track like this and you just want to improvise and sort of get a feel for it, this is a cool website to check out. So on this website, what you'll be able to do is set the scale that you're going to be working with the tool over here. So you'll start by determining what is the root of that scale. So we're in Aeolian, so the root is A. So we're going to set that to A. And then you're going to choose your scale. This particular website, you know, it groups scales just sort of subjectively in these 4 categories. These are not like official music theory terms. But in particular, they do have, you know, all the modes of the major scale. The major scale, I'll load that up real quick. So for example, we can see the notes of C major here. So in colors, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. And if you look at them in the circle of fifths, it's a little more clear because you can see them all grouped together. But we'll talk about that on another episode. But when you're looking at the scales here, all 7 modes of the major scale are in this list, but they're just not organized like numerically or in order from, you know, mode 1 through 7. But they are all here. So the Aeolian mode is going to be the same as the natural minor scale. So I'm going to set my scale mode to natural minor. Okay, and my root to A. All right, and we'll see here the notes are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, same as the graphic I've got just below me here on the screen on YouTube. What this tool does is it will assign only the notes of this scale to your keyboard on your computer or laptop. So when I press, for example, if I'm in this window and I press the Z key on my keyboard, that's going to play the pitch A. And as I continue to type on my keyboard, it's going to play up and down the scale. All right, and you can do it in different octaves, etc. You can play around with that. But what's cool about a tool like this is that you really don't need to understand music theory to create sound. And you don't need to understand anything about music theory to stay within the scale. That's when you're improvising, you're moving, a lot of times when you're improvising, not all the time, but when you're improvising, oftentimes you're just playing notes from a scale and maybe embellishing them with some other things outside the scale, but primarily they're notes from the scale. So if you're new to improvisation, a tool like this is really cool because it helps take away the barrier of the music theory knowledge. So just to continue to demonstrate the tool real quickly, if we were to change that scale, say from natural minor to a completely different type of scale, like let's say the whole tone scale. Okay, so the whole tone scale has a very dreamy sound and very unsettled. There's no perfect fifths anywhere in this scale, so it never feels rested. But for example, if we were to set our root to C and set it to the whole tone scale, now notice all the keys on my QWERTY keyboard, my typing keyboard on my computer, they've been reassigned to different notes. So as I play the notes, you'll hear it's a totally different scale. Okay. The tool is also, it has different sounds in here. None of these are going to be like really great quality sounding instruments. They're just sort of MIDI instrument sounds to put in, but they're tons of fun to play with, especially as you're improvising. You might enjoy some of these synthesizer sounds. So for example, let's try, let's see what this atmosphere sounds like. All right, I'll click on that and load that up. And that sounds like so. My audio is breaking up just a little bit because it's very, this website's pretty intensive while I'm live streaming. But you get the idea. So you can set your sound. I'm just going to set it to piano just for the moment. But I'm going to be playing my actual piano as we go through the exercise. Okay, I'll keep our root set to A and our scale set to natural minor, which is the same as Aeolian. Okay? Okay, so again, that website, you'll see the link right here on the screen, apps.muselab.org/accordion, like the word accordion. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is bring up our play-along track. So as I mentioned, if you want to download today's track, just become a member of our Patreon. At supporter level, just $2 a month. This is the type of content you'll be getting. So this particular track, I put this together this week, and this is going to be a mixture of synthetic sounds that I pulled together in GarageBand and some other resources I've got. Okay, and it's just going to be highlighting the pitches A and E. Okay, and it's just going to be a continuous sound of just A and E. Okay, so this means that as we're playing along and improvising or practicing scales on top of it, any scale that has these two notes potentially could fit along with the track. So maybe we'll experiment and try that out as we listen to it. But let's start pretty simple. Let's keep it pretty simple. Let's listen to the track for just a moment. I'm going to put that on. And I'm going to sort of narrate what it is we're hearing so you know how would you work with a thing like this. Okay, so now you can hear that sound in the background. These are just some synthesizer sounds on the pitches A and E. Right, and you can hear it fits like a hand in a glove with these two notes. Right. This particular sound, I've layered a lot of different synthesizer sounds so it changes over time. So this would just be called like just evolving sound. All right. So the purpose of a track like this, as you're listening and you're sitting down to practice, this gives you, it's probably a minute or so of this continuous drone sound. This is a good time to just sit at your instrument, take a deep breath. Let it out, and just as though you were meditating, you're sort of getting your mind in the space of practicing. You're getting focused on what it is you're getting ready to do. Okay, in a moment in this track, you'll start to hear a suspended cymbal start to roll, and it'll start to get louder and louder and louder, and ultimately that will land on sort of a downbeat. There it is coming in now. All right, and then you'll hear, I've just chosen like an African drumming pattern to play along. Okay, so it's still just A and E in the synthesizer sort of in the background. All right, and now you can hear the scale coming in. This is the second octave. I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 octaves. We'll listen and find out. All right, it's going into the third octave now. Okay, so it's 3 octaves. It's going to come back down. starting pitches. So we've got A just below middle C, and then the A an octave below that. Okay, so after the scale plays through, we'll hear this drumming continue, we'll hear the drone continue, and at some point the drumming will sort of drop out. Okay, you'll always notice the drone synthesizer sound is always evolving or sort of modulating, not keys, but just the sound quality itself. All right, and eventually this drone sound will start to fade away, fade out over time. Okay, so there's about maybe 30 more seconds left in the track. All right, and you can hear that, so you get the idea. So that's sort of a preview of the track. I'll pause it there. Okay, so how do you use something like this? What do you do with that? Okay, well, beyond it just sounding cool, you could just listen to it. It's a great track for just actually meditating to. What we're going to do is sort of a three-parted improvisational structure. If you're new to improvising, the only thing you're going to need to do at the piano keyboard is to play the white keys. There's nothing more to think about or try to strategize with. You're just playing the white keys of the piano. If you're a little bit more advanced than that when it comes to music theory, essentially we're outlining and playing things in the scale of A, Aeolian or A natural minor. So we're going to be playing a lot of A's, C's, and E's. So we're outlining that A minor triad that's from this scale. Okay, that doesn't mean you have to always play these three notes, but it just means you're probably playing those three notes more than others. Okay, the structure of the track is going to be the drone with no percussion at all, so it's just the synthesizer sound. In this section, we're just improvising. We could choose to be playing along A natural minor scale. If that's just what you want to play along, that's fine. But the second section in the middle, this is where we'll hear the cymbal fades in. We'll hear the drumming start. There'll be 4 measures of the drumming to sort of get us prepared for the tempo. And then we're playing very slowly the A natural minor scale along with it. Like so. And it'll go up 3 octaves all the way to the top to this A here you can see on the keyboard below. Okay, so from here all the way up to here. Okay, and I won't belabor you with the rhythm of the pattern. You can hear it and just follow along with it. It's intentionally, the rhythm of the scale itself is very slow and steady, of course, for practicing purposes. But the rhythm of the drumming is more active. So you're actually getting a chance to practice extremely slowly, which is perfect for muscle memory development and learning to memorize the notes of a particular scale. But you've got a more active rhythm, so it's still interesting to listen to, and you've always got that drone changing in the background. When you practice with a track like this, I find it useful to practice with headphones just so you can hear the quality of the sound as it changes more easily. But if you have a great speaker setup, it sounds just fine on the loudspeaker too. Okay, so let's go through it one time. We're going to play through it, and I'm just going to improvise, and when we get to the scale section, I'll play the scale. So if you're totally brand new to the keyboard, totally brand new to improvising, just watch along as we improvise. I'll narrate and let you know when it's time to play the scale. But when it's time to play the scale, using just one hand, where I'm not too worried about the fingering at this point, we're just going to be playing the notes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Every time we get to A, the note's just a little bit longer. Okay? So here we go. We'll start at the beginning. I'll improvise the structure. It's about a minute of the drone for improvisation, about a minute worth of a 3-octave scale up and down, and then 30 seconds to a minute of just the drone at the end. Okay, so if you have questions, throw them in the chat while we're doing our first round of improvisation. We'll address those right at the end of that. And this first time through, I'll just sort of narrate what it is I'm doing. Okay, so here we go. so I'm just going to start in the upper register of the piano. Any notes, any white keys from the keys will fit this sound. So there's 4 measures of the strumming. All right, one more. Now the scale begins here. I'll just resume back with the improvisation. All right, and it'll just slowly fade out from there. Okay. So there's no particular rhyme or reason to how I'm improvising or what I'm trying to accomplish with that, and that's just our first time through. This time as we go through it, let's talk about some different techniques. How might you improvise with that? What can you do with this to be a little bit different? Okay. So let me know in the comments, in the chat, if you have questions or just comments about that. Let me know. We'll address those as we jump in through this. But one thing to do when you're improvising with a drone track or you're just improvising within a scale is to introduce patterns and repetition. So this is what makes music interesting, patterns and repetition, and then ultimately breaking patterns or breaking expectations. That's what keeps the music interesting. It's a little challenging to break expectations with a drone track because the drone never really changes, but that doesn't mean we can't change it at all. Okay, so as I'm playing through this, I'm thinking about patterns. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to switch my camera to my overhead here. All right, so you'll see my hands. So what I'm thinking about as I'm playing through that is like what scale am I working with, which I've chosen aeolian, which is just the white keys of the keyboard, just for simplicity. And what is the shape of the hand as I'm playing this? If you're applying the concept to different instruments like the clarinet or the guitar or something else, the shape in particular doesn't really help you. So you're more thinking, what is the actual interval structure between the notes we're playing? So for example, let's say I wanted to work with a pattern of starting note. In this case, we'll start on A, up a sixth to F, and then down a step to E. All right, so the shape looks like this on the keyboard, A, F, and E. I'm playing it with my thumb, finger 4, and finger 3. So I might just keep those 3 fingers as I move this shape around. So a simple way to do that is to just play it up the scale, meaning move the hand up as we play this. So it might sound like this. You can vary the rhythm. All right, and it just keeps going. So as we play along with the track, let's bring it back to the beginning. Let's just take a listen to a short example like that. All right, so we'll hear our track come in just a moment. Here we go. All right, and I'll just play, I'll use just that pattern this time. We'll just do it for about a minute. All right, and I'll stop there. You get the idea. Okay, so the beauty of meditative practice in this type of improvisation is that you don't have to think about, the challenges of reading music. You don't have to think about the challenge of knowing what to play. You have a small amount of parameters. We know what scale to play. In this particular example, we're staying limited to just one pattern. You can just play through this pattern up and down the keyboard, explore the sounds of the keyboard. Okay, so it's a lot of fun, and it's very low stress. It's actually a quite good meditative exercise just for the purpose of being calm. So the second thing we'll talk about, same pattern. All right, but now we'll start to move it in different increments. So we won't do it by an interval of just moving up one, like shifting the pattern up one key. Maybe now we'll try shifting it up 2 keys at a time. So let's try it again. It'll sound like this. We'll go, all right, and now we'll shift the pattern up 2 keys. So the next key will start on C. All right, so let's listen to that with the track. Try along with me. You don't have to be playing exactly the same thing I am. As long as you're just limited to the white keys of the keyboard, that'll sound just fine. Okay, let's try it one more time. We'll take about a minute's worth of practice there. All right, and I'll play around with that pattern. Same pattern, just shifting it by thirds. Okay, so you get the idea there. Okay, so now we're going to take the same pattern. All right, and we're going to start to rearrange the intervals. And these are, I'm just going through lots of random techniques. When you're improvising, sometimes you're thinking about these things consciously, like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do, and let's play around with that pattern. But you're not always thinking about patterns. This is just one technique. But when we're working with this pattern, this particular pattern, we started on whatever the starting note was. In this case, it's A. And we're going up a sixth, down a second. So this time, we're going to invert our sixth. So instead of going up a sixth from A to F, we're going to go from A down to F. So it's the same note, down a third, and we'll keep our descending by a second part added to that. So I'm going to switch my camera back to just the MIDI keyboard so you can see the notes. So sometimes I'll play the starting note up a sixth and down a second, so A, F, E. And sometimes I'll invert the sixth, so it'll go down by a third, so A, F, E. All right. So when I'm playing around with a pattern in that sort of way, it might look like this. All right, so there's an inverted pattern of that. We'll keep playing the inverted pattern. And then go back to the regular pattern. All right, so we're just alternating the first pattern and then adding in the inverted leap of a third on the second pattern. So let's play around with that. Let's give it about a minute or so with the drone track. Here we go. All right, and let me turn the volume up on that so you can hear it. Here we go. All right, I'm just going to add in a little left hand this time with the drone on A and E. Stop there as the scale starts to come in. So if I was practicing this, just listening to this track and doing this type of meditative practice, I might put this track on a loop. I might set a timer for 10 minutes, something like that. And I would just let this track play on a loop. And I would improvise along with it using patterns. When the scale comes in, sometimes I would play the scale along with it. Or I might continue to improvise over top of the scale, which is probably what I would do most of the time, unless my intention is to truly practice the scale. So let's continue on with that. So we've talked a little bit about patterns and moving the patterns up and down the keyboard. Some other things we can do. So I'll switch back to our accordion tool for just a moment. So as I mentioned, the drone itself, A and E, any scale at all that has these two notes will fit with the drone. And you can use your accordion tool to figure that out. So in essence, as I'm practicing with this track, I could stick to A Aeolian the whole time, all the white keys. It'll sound great. It'll be a very fulfilling practicing experience. But I may want to play around with other scales with a root of A. So if I switch the scale, let's do, let's see, what would be a fun one to try? Let's do the Lydian scale. So I like the Lydian mode quite a bit. Lydian has sort of a dreamy quality to it, similar to the whole tone scale, but it's not all, there's perfect fifths in the scale, so there's some moments where it's more grounded. So let's just take a listen. What is the Lydian scale? What does that sound like? If we're doing it in A, that's A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Okay, so we've got that A and the E are a part of the scale. Okay, and what makes it sort of dreamy? Why do I say it sounds that way? It's that raised fourth scale degree, the D sharp. That gives it that sort of feel. So just listen to it as a scale. Oh, sorry. And I call it dreamy. Those are just subjective words. You may have a different word you associate to that. Okay? Let's play a little bit of that drone track with the Lydian scale added on top of that. Let me pull that back up here. All right. And I tell you what, just for fun, let's try... we'll use the sounds of accordion so I can give you an example of what that might be like. Let's do something, let's see if we could find a percussive instrument. Vibraphone probably sounds pretty good. Synthetic vibraphone, that's a good sound to emulate on a cheap instrument because it's really easy to emulate that type of sound. Okay, let's listen. We're back. Here we go. And I'm also getting the sound of that piano for some reason in there. But let's start our drone track up. We'll improvise a little A Lydian over top of the drone. So you get a feel for the sound of that using accordion. We'll continue on. I'll do a little bit on the keyboard. Of course, the scale will come in, and we'll hear the sound of that Aeolian come back in. Okay, so once that starts up, it won't mesh as well with the Lydian scale any longer, just the opening drone part. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's try one more scale just to get a feel for how that might work in some other keys. So let's try the sound of Dorian, which is another mode of C major. Okay, we're going to do that on the root of D. So that's D Dorian, which happens to be exactly the same notes as A Aeolian. So what we're doing here is just re-emphasizing what's the resting note, what's the note that we're putting the emphasis on. So the pitches are literally the same, just the white keys of the keyboard. And I'm going to switch my keyboard camera back on for that. All right, but this time we're emphasizing more often the D, the F, and the A. Okay, so let's take a listen to the drone track this time. All right, emphasizing still all the white notes of the keyboard, but we're adding in mostly D's and A's. It will still fit beautifully with the drone of the A and the E. Okay, so here we go. And let's take a look. We'll do about a minute of that. Stop it there for now. All right. So you can see any scale with just the A and the E, that'll fit nicely with this track. Okay, so this is our African drone track. Again, this is available to our Patreons for practicing along with. Okay, so let me know in the comments if you have questions about anything we've talked about thus far. So we've talked about the Aeolian mode, which is a mode of the C major scale. We've talked about using patterns, so shifting patterns on the piano. We've talked a little bit about what are some techniques of improvisation. So there's sort of three components: patterns, repetition, and then breaking expectations. We haven't talked a lot about that yet. And then finally, using this tool, accordion, to explore other scales, see what else is out there, using the QWERTY keyboard on your laptop to sort of play around with these if your abilities on your instrument, if you don't quite understand the music theory, to be able to very fluidly move around as you're improvising, which is not required. That's kind of the point of meditative practice, is to get better and better at playing it on your instrument and get more comfortable with it. But I certainly understand when you're a beginner, it can be very frustrating because sometimes you really just want to play. And, you know, you've sort of hit a moment in your practice where maybe you're tired of trying to read music. You're tired of practicing just sort of dry scales over and over. You want some freedom to play improvisation, but you don't really quite have all the music theory tools to just sort of freely spin out whatever's in your mind. You can't quite translate that thought. So these practice drone tracks like this are a sort of a perfect bridge to get you there. Okay? All right. Let me know in the chat or the comment if you have questions. David asked a question here. I see this question came in. I use earphones when practicing on keyboard. How do I listen to the drone then? That's a good question. So if you, for a setup like this, let's see, I listen to earphones when practicing on the keyboard. There's different ways you could do that. The best thing you probably could do, if you have, let's say you have an iPad or something to listen to the drone track from. You can use a pair of earbuds like so. For some reason, I have like 300 pairs of earbuds. Every time you go on a plane, they give you a set. You know, there's always like these cheap little earbuds everywhere. I always just keep them. But I have a handful of nice pairs. So these are the brand Skull Candy. But they're really small earbuds. And you can have one earbud in your ear, like so. Plug that into your iPad so you can hear the track that you're practicing with. All right? And if you have your second set of headphones for your keyboard, is this style, so it's called an over the ear. So there's like a cup here. That cup will fit over top of the earbud. So now I can hear the sound from two different sources. That's the lowest tech way to do it. That's probably the cheapest possible setup to do that. If you want to get more advanced than that, you certainly can. So in my studio here, I have an audio mixer set up, and a mixer is just a simple piece of equipment. The mixer I have is, let's see, what's the brand of this? This is an Alesis Multimix 4, which is a 4-channel mixer. It was about $99. It hooks into my computer through a USB connection, and I have my keyboard connected to the mixer. So I can hear the sound of my keyboard and the sound of the computer together through one set of headphones. That certainly is a more expensive route to go if you're looking for this type of thing. If you really want the cheapest route, you know, just play your keyboard without headphones and play your sound through your phone or your tablet or laptop. That would certainly be the cheapest. But if you're trying to keep earphones on, I think the earbud route with the over-the-ear headphones is the least expensive and probably it's relatively less intrusive. It's not too bothersome to wear that setup. Great question, David. Thanks for asking. Let me know if you have any more questions about the content from today. That's probably going to wrap us up for this morning. Some other things to consider. If you are new to the piano and you want to learn more about practicing your scales or practicing modes like this, every week I talk about a tool called Piano Marvel. I'll throw a link up on the screen. You can download a free copy of that or a 30-day free trial at 1minutemusiclesson.com/toolbox. And in that particular tool, you'll be able to find all the different scales, all the different modes to practice with. In particular, if you are a Piano Marvel user and you want to learn more about modes, check out the Alfred Adult Group Piano book within Piano Marvel, because that goes into modes quite a bit with some examples and worksheets. Okay, that is going to be it for the show today. Thanks for tuning in. Again, I like to always say a special thank you to our patrons. That is what helps us keep us achieving and accomplishing our mission, which is to teach musical literacy to the world. So thank you so much, patrons. If you did enjoy today's content and you want to support the show and you want to download our practice track from this episode, visit 1minutemusiclesson.com/support. That's going to be it for this morning. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you next Saturday, 10 a.m. Chicago time, which is Central Standard Time. And that's going to be it. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.